Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's June 17th, 2020. I wanted to see what was going on in America today. Uh, this morning, I took a ride down to South Philly to 2nd Street between Reed and Wharton, the street my mother grew up on, and directly across from her house are two bronze statues to two people who served in the 101st Airborne, 506 Regiment, Easy Company, Bill Guarnere and Babe Heffron. If you've ever read the book Band of Brothers or seen the miniseries, you'll know both these gentlemen because they are pretty prominent in the book and in the miniseries. These 18 and 19-year-olds, they, in 1943, went halfway around the world, trained, and went up against the Nazi regime. They drew a line in the sand and said, "You shall not pass here." And they fought the Nazis tooth and nail back into Germany. They fought in France, and they fought in Holland, they fought in Belgium, and they fought in Germany. They saw countless friends either wounded or killed, and Bill Guarnere lost his leg at the Battle of the Bulge. These are the type of people that should have statues put up for them, and rightfully so. But I guess the question I had today, I wonder, is how long is it going to be before these statues offend somebody? If you go to Germany today, there are no statues of Hitler, Himmler, Rudolf Hess, Hermann Goering, but they still teach the history of the Nazi Party, what it did, how it did it, and how these young men, these Allied troops, stood up and knocked down the Nazi advance. It's a pretty group. I always say they're the toughest group of people I've ever met in my life, the greatest generation, and I have nothing but respect for them. In another part of our South Philly today, they were taking down the Christopher Columbus statue. The man died in 1506, and apparently he's still offending people. I understand he had a little of a sordid past, but really? This is what we're doing now? I mean, we're just taking statues down? He's still part of history. He's still going to be taught as part of history. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, helped write the U.S. Constitution. And yes, he was a slave owner. How are we going to judge Thomas Jefferson? Do we judge him just for being a slave owner or by his whole life? And who decides that? All this stuff is perspective, and I'm not sure who we're going to decide makes these decisions, but you better give it some thought, because what you're really doing is judging yesterday's events by today's standards. It's a pretty dangerous way to live your life. Down south, they're taking a lot of statues of Robert E. Lee down. And the Southerners, rightfully so, are a little upset over the whole thing. He's a great person in their history. He's a general. And by all accounts, a great general. Even the Union Party was a great general. They wanted him for the Army of the Potomac as the leader. But he told them he would not rise up against his own people. I wonder, though, if one Southerner, General George Pickett, would be happy that General Lee have statues all over the place. General Pickett served for General Lee, and he led the attack on the third day at Gettysburg. General Lee was told on several occasions not to attack the Union Center, but his ego would have none of it, and he sent Pickett's division to attack the Union Center, and they were wiped out. As he was coming off the battlefield, General Lee said to General Pickett, "You have to take care of your men." And General Pickett said, "I have no men. My division has been wiped out." Pickett never spoke to Lee after that. Again, it's all your perspective and how you see some people. Black Lives Matter has the loudest voice right now, the loudest drum. But just because you scream the loudest doesn't mean that everything you say and do is right. What happened to George Floyd was a horrible thing. Nobody should die that way. I think the majority of police officers in America would agree with that. But we can't judge every police officer by what those fellas did there. It's just not fair. Police officers have a very difficult job. They have to make split-second decisions on some very tough situations. So we shouldn't try to lump them all together and say they're all bad, or to defund the police department because of some bad apple someplace else. It's not really being thought out very well, in my opinion. And George Floyd, if the truth be told, wasn't a Boy Scout. He had quite the criminal past. But you know what? He got 3 funerals. 3. Some people who died of COVID-19 couldn't have funerals. But George had 3. Now, you might ask why I'm talking about that. Well, while I'm down at this little area down in South Philly where these statues are, there are also pavers in the ground. And one of the pavers commemorates my Uncle Joe, who was killed on a landing craft that was taking troops onto Okinawa. He was a gunner on the landing craft, and he was killed by a kamikaze. Do you know how many funerals Joe had? None. 0. His body was never recovered. His name is memorialized there on that paver and also at the Punch Bowl Cemetery in Hawaii. My mom's family, especially my mom's mother, my grandmother, never recovered from the death of her son. But she didn't have to burn buildings down or break windows. She just had to deal with it. I served with African Americans, Caucasians, Orientals, Hispanics, women, gays in my Air Force career. We were all brothers and sisters fighting for the same cause. I think our country will need more of that more than ever right now. We all really want to see the same changes. We want everything to be for the better. And if you want that, if you really want change, then you need to go out and elect the people who can affect change. Really, that's the only way things are going to happen. It's the only way we can provide for the common good of all Americans. So let's do better. We have to as a nation. It's very difficult out there now, and like I said, let's do a lot better and try harder. And that's it for today. See you all later in the week.